in extraordinary situations.
I wanted to be Superman and just try to hold the thing back because I could see it starting to go over.
Caught on camera. To the rescue. Welcome to Caught on Camera. I'm Contessa Brewer. Have you ever witnessed a crime, a scary accident, or someone in serious peril? All of the people in our next hour did. And though they could have shied away from danger, each of these ordinary citizens chose the opposite, to step in and help out. A fire rages through an apartment, and trapped inside the inferno is a terrified 4-year-old boy. Horia Creton owns a variety store on the first floor of the building. After hearing someone scream, a little boy is in the building. He grabs a ladder from his store, climbs the fire escape, and is first on the scene, trying to rescue the child.
I was trying to make my way inside. I couldn't. The smoke was way too much.
Stuck outside the window, Horia can't reach the child. And with smoke enveloping them, he knows the boy desperately needs oxygen.
So I told him, just breathe. Breathe outside and make sure you keep breathing.
Things aren't looking good. But to his relief, firefighters soon arrive on the scene.
And I see a ladder setting in place and bringing up one of the firefighters. As soon as he came up, I let him know. I said, there's a baby inside of the apartment. You could see him. He's right at that window. Try to get him out. But
relief quickly turns to despair when Horia suddenly hears the unthinkable.
All of a sudden, I heard the firefighter saying, boy, where did you go? And I said, where did he go? I said, he was just right there. What happened?
In the midst of the rescue, Horia believes the child may have been frightened by the noise, and now he's run straight back into the smoke-filled apartment. Seconds could mean the difference between life and death, so Horia heads back over to help the firemen.
It was just me and the firefighter at this point. He jumped over the banister, and he went into the apartment. And I went halfway into the apartment, hoping to see him bring the baby. Sure enough, I see the firefighter coming with the baby in his arms, and I grabbed him.
They got the baby. Come on.
Carrying the limp child down the fire escape, Horia knows he must act fast.
I decided to lay him down right there, having that the firefighter said give him oxygen. Of course, that's what he needs. The baby was foaming at the mouth, was foaming at the nose. I was scared for his life. I couldn't think of anything else. I just want the baby to be fine. I want him to be okay. It's a horrible way to die.
For Horia, this whole experience is a morbid deja vu. At the age of 12, Horia lost his father in a fire at their apartment in Romania.
My father was trying to put the fire out. He was fighting the fire in the apartment. I want to try to make my way back in, see how's daddy. There was no way. There was no way I could have gotten back in. The minute I tried to just even attempt to go back in, I felt like my skin is burning. If it was in my power and if I could have done it, I would have done it, of course. But my father never made it. He never came out of the apartment alive.
Horia is determined to do whatever it takes to save this child. Using a curtain to shield the child from falling debris, Horia begins CPR.
I cleaned his mouth, I cleaned his nose, I put my hand underneath his head to try to straighten the neck. I pressed on his chest a few times, after which the baby regained consciousness, opened his eyes, and it was the most beautiful thing ever.
Horia grabs the boy and hands him to firefighters. It takes a little maneuvering, but finally they're guided off the fire escape through another apartment.
Please, anybody else would have done it.
But you were there.
I was there first, yeah.
The man is a bona fide hero.
The little boy, identified as 4-year-old Christopher Ramcharan, is rushed to Jacobi Medical Center for treatment. Horia suffers from the effects of smoke inhalation and a broken rib.
When I picked him up the second time, when I twisted my body, that's when I snapped one rib right here. But that's better now.
Now, happy and healthy, little Christopher even stops by to visit Horia, also known as Billy, several times a week.
If he's got a problem in school or a child on the block, he says, I want to talk to Billy. So he comes over, the family says, oh my God, here it is, he wants to talk to you. And he's full of life, he's a happy child. I love that about him, I never seen him upset. And he finds comfort in everything he does. I think he's going to be a great man.
I play with them.
Oh, you play with them? And I hope one day he could return the favor by helping other people if it comes to his power.
Coming up, a man in a wheelchair takes on a would-be robber.
It all happened so quickly, I just reacted.
A woman falls into the path of an oncoming train, and a man tries to save her.
I just got to the corner of the tunnel and waved my hands back and forth and pointing at the woman on the train tracks.
And two robbers attack at an internet gaming cafe.
I saw him wind up, and all that ran through my head was, oh, this is gonna hurt.
When caught on camera, To the Rescue continues. It's a quiet night at the food stock convenience store in Vancouver, British Columbia. And longtime customer Larry Skopnik is at the store surfing the internet.
Seemed like an ordinary Saturday night. Lots of traffic coming in and out. There were 3 other customers, myself, I was in the store at that time.
Store co-owner Cindy Gruel is the manager on duty.
I was serving my customer here, Larry, and this one customer comes in my store and he goes, he needs to buy tobacco and along with a lottery ticket and rolling papers. And I said, yeah, sure, no problem.
But Cindy and Larry notice the man is acting a little strange.
You could tell that this customer, you got to watch him like a hawk and make sure everything's okay.
He just seemed on edge and maybe under the influence of alcohol or drugs, skittish. And I just got these bad vibes from him. I was actually thinking he was going to grab some merchandise and run. So I was kind of keeping an eye on him.
When Larry turns his attention back to the computer, Cindy heads to the counter to wait on the man.
I told him that we only take cash. He said, yeah, I got cash. And he goes, I got only Americans. And I said, yeah, no problem. We love American money. So while I was bringing in the items, he handed over a $50 fake to me. And as soon as he puts it in my hand, I noticed it's fake. And I told him it's fake money.
When Cindy refuses to take his money, the man becomes irate.
So he started using the felty language, and then I told him, I said, I'm going to call the police, and he said, give my money back. I said, no, let the police come in, then you can have it back. Then he goes, oh, okay, I'm going to rob you.
Pushing his way behind the counter, the man begins fighting with Cindy.
First he was trying to reach for the cupboard, and then he tried to grab that tobacco from my hand. So I kind of hit him, and he tried to hit me back.
And that's when Larry comes to her aid.
I tried grabbing him from behind the counter, and it didn't quite work, so I opened the door and tried to grab him again, and I couldn't quite reach him, and then all of a sudden he was just there, so I got him in the headlock. He must have had a hold of Cindy, because once I had a hold of him, she kind of flew over top of us and landed on the floor also.
While wrestling the man, Larry falls out of his chair.
I became really strong, and so I repositioned my hold on him so I'd be in a better position when I did hit the ground to be in a controlling position. I think he was really scared.
Larry's able to pin the man to the ground, but he's concerned the man may wiggle loose and retaliate, so he cries out to the 3 other customers watching the fight.
And I had to tell him, can you grab this guy, grab this guy. You can see in the video that they did grab him, and they actually followed him for quite a while.
I'm talking to the girl on 911, and then I told her that what's happening inside the store, and then she's telling me, she said, you know what, by law you can't hold him down, you got to let him go. And I said, why would we let him go? And I got good citizens out here trying to help me out.
The man fights with the other customers for several minutes, but eventually he gives up. Police arrive at the scene and remove the man from the store. No charges are filed against him, as police find no evidence of a robbery. None of the bystanders who restrained the man is arrested either.
You see all the responses that I got on Facebook?
For his bravery, Larry has received praise from thousands of people online.
I have thousands of messages from plain strangers just thanking me. I have lots of messages from people in wheelchairs who want to be my friend on Facebook. I have responses from all over the world. I'm glad people appreciate what I've done. I'm touched that I've touched other people.
He says some folks may have preconceived notions about people in wheelchairs, but there's really nothing they can't do.
The only thing I can't do is walk, run, jump, and kick. I'm fully capable of doing everything else, and sometimes better than the average able body, because we strive so hard at being able or independent. Sometimes it's just like tougher to get a job done, so we have to work a little bit harder at it and find new and better ways of getting things done.
Larry doesn't like to think of himself as a hero, but he'll always be one to Cindy.
We need to have more people like Larry on this earth. The way he helped me out, that was great. Yeah, he's my hero.
Coming up, a man mows down a Florida professor.
After the bumper hit my temporal area here on the side, I became unconscious.
And a spill puts one Boston commuter in danger.
She wavered back and forth and ended up going into the tracks. I really wasn't sure whether she was dead or alive.
When caught on camera, To the Rescue continues. December 2009, Fort Lauderdale, Florida. Professor John Hill is in his yard when he notices a man pulling his car onto the grass of one of the properties Hill owns across the street.
He pulled into the property very recklessly, and so I made a move to him to not do that.
The man is Frank Parker, the father of one of Professor Hill's tenants. In the past, Professor Hill has repeatedly asked him not to park on the lawn, and he was met with a few unkind words. But today, Parker reacts in a way Professor Hill could never have expected.
He became very irate and very hostile towards me, began to approach me with profane language. I was very, very afraid. This guy is a pretty big guy, and I definitely didn't want any physical confrontation. And so I began to get back from him.
But it's too late. Parker, enraged, jumps into his car and heads straight for Professor Hill's yard.
When I saw him entering into the gate with that tremendous speed, doing the donuts or the 360s in the yard, I said, I need to get out of here because he could very well come over and just crush me where I'm standing.
Professor Hill runs for his life. He takes off down the street. But to his horror, Parker is right on his heels.
He came out of the 360, came out of the driveway, and began to follow and pursue me to run me down.
Marvis Mohorn is just leaving his mother-in-law's house when he witnesses the terrifying scene.
He was running from the car, and he got between the tree and the sidewalk, and the car was coming behind him, and I said, don't run over him, don't run over him.
I was running down the sidewalk to try to avoid the car and the impact. I thought I could make that by running to the telegram pole to protect me. When I looked back, that's when I began falling. I said to myself, oh Lord, why am I falling? Please don't let me fall.
With Professor Hill on the ground, Parker steamrolls right over him. It's all caught on a store security camera.
When he ran over him, I was shocked. And I said, oh Lord, is this some movies or what? Because I never seen nothing like that.
I remember the immediate onset of the impact of the bumper. My head lifted because I was trying to raise up to probably move and get up and run again. And after the bumper hit my temporal area here on the side, I became unconscious, and I don't remember after that.
After running over Professor Hill, Parker gets out of his car and begins swinging at a bystander who witnessed the crime.
I seen when he shut the car off, and he hit some little boy was in front of the car. He hit him, and then he ran in the store.
But he's not in the store for long.
And that's when all the guys came out. They was jumping on him and everything. The guys was hitting him because of what he had did. He ran over Mr. Hill, and they know him and everything. So that's the reason why they was fighting.
With Parker subdued, the crowd quickly turns their attention to Professor Hill, who is still trapped under the car.
And then my wife ran up there, looked under the car, and said he's breathing.
Police officer Paul Brown is heading back to the station when someone in the crowd flags him down.
Then citizen came over to me and said, officer, there's a gentleman under the car. So I looked under the car, and there was Mr. Hill lying face down under the car. Now, based upon what I saw, I knew he was in great pain.
Trapped beneath the car, Professor Hill is in dire need of help. With little time to waste and no paramedics at the scene, the crowd begins to lift the car off of him.
So I said, we can lift the car up. And the officer said, you think you can lift it? I said, we can try. And I grabbed it like that, and then I yelled and told some of the guys to come over and give me a hand.
A group of volunteers surrounds the car and summons all of their strength.
So I said, on the count of 3, you guys gonna lift and I'm gonna pull. So on the count of 3, they lift.
All of us just lifted up, and it felt easy then because there was so many of us lift the car up. We tipped the car just like that right there, and we let him held the car under there until the officer pulled him from up underneath. I don't know where I get that strength from, but we got it up off of him. Then after we got him from up underneath, I told everybody to let the car down real easy, and we laid it down easy.
When he came out, I did not want to move him much because I don't know what kind of injuries he sustained. I did not want to aggravate those injuries. So I kind of let him stay still and just reassure him that help is on its way.
Less than 2 minutes later, paramedics arrive on the scene.
My ear was severed from my scalp due to the impact on the sidewalk, and all of the cartilage has been wasted away, and now it's all sutured to my scalp. I have stainless steel screws, approximately 8 stainless steel screws holding my pelvis together where it was pulled apart and dislocated from the impact. Very painful injury, and as of now I have some hearing problems.
Professor Hill undergoes 5 surgeries and is confined to a wheelchair for 12 weeks, but he considers himself extremely lucky to be alive.
I feel blessed. That's the term I would like to use. And I feel that there is purpose as to why I'm still alive. I truly believe that.
Parker is arrested and charged with attempted first-degree murder. He pleads not guilty. He's in jail at the North Broward Bureau awaiting trial. Despite experiencing the worst in human nature on that day, Professor Hill knows he also experienced the best. The kindness and strength of strangers saved his life.
It shows me that there's true mankind still in existence, and people still are good. All of us.
Coming up, a blind woman brutally attacked on a Seattle bus.
It was really shocking. I remember hearing people screaming.
And a terrifying accident at an Iowa State Fair.
She was doing whatever she could to hold on to his arm and keep him from falling off of that car.
When caught on camera, To the Rescue continues. Welcome back to Caught on Camera. I'm Contessa Brewer. Many of us ride public transportation every day, and whether we're on the bus or on the train, we tend to keep to ourselves. But what happens when a typical trip turns into a life or death situation? In our next stories, the people you'll see may have surprised even themselves with their quick reactions. A woman falls from a subway platform, and bystanders wave frantically to try to stop the oncoming train.
I was just too scared. You don't want to take anybody's life.
It's November 6th, 2009. Bill Lynch waits for the train at Boston's North Station after leaving his job as an usher for the Boston Celtics.
It was about 10:30 in the evening, and we were coming home from the Celtics game. We're down waiting for the train to come in.
While waiting, Bill notices 26-year-old Sophia Hart-Deegan, who's smoking a cigarette near the end of the platform.
It's funny, both of those venues that I work at have a no smoking policy. And I was almost going to go over there and tell her there's no smoking in the MBTA too. But I stopped and thought better of it.
The train begins pulling into the station. Sophia moves dangerously close to the edge of the platform and appears to try to put out her cigarette. Bill is watching her closely.
She wavered back and forth and ended up going into the tracks, and at which time I went over to her And I tried to yell to her to get up, but she didn't move. I really wasn't sure whether she was dead or alive.
With the train quickly approaching, Bill knows he needs to act fast.
I looked back and I saw people trying to wave the train down, so I said, I better do that. That's the only thing left to do at this point. I just got to the corner of the tunnel and just waved my hands back and forth and pointing at the woman on the train tracks so she'd get some idea of why we were doing it. I don't think she would have been looking for anybody in the middle of the tracks.
Charisse Lewis is driving the train that night when she sees Bill waving at her.
As I'm coming in, I notice, there's a lot of people on the platform, but there's particularly this one guy that's like really frantically waving, and he was really on the edge of the platform. And I'm like, okay, you really need to move or you're gonna fall in. So I'm slowing down because my concentration is on him.
But when Charisse looks down into the pit where Bill is pointing, she notices a shadowy moving figure.
I'm like, okay, I'm not supposed to be there. That's a little bit too big. And I notice there's someone in there, and then, automatic reflexes like, okay, put the train in emergency brake and just stop. The train, you don't have that automatic stop, so it was still moving, and it was just like, stop the train and pray for the best. And as we're coming up, I can see the train go over her, and that just scared me even more because I'm like, oh God, she's not gonna make it. She's not gonna make it.
I wanted to be Superman and just try to hold the thing back because I could see it starting to go over.
The train finally comes screeching to a stop, and Charisse is terrified by what she might see when she looks down at the tracks.
I don't want to be responsible for taking anyone's life. That's like the worst feeling. That's somebody's child. It could have been somebody's mother. I was shocked. I was nervous. It was a little bit of everything. The adrenaline was just way too high.
Fortunately, the train stops before it causes any damage to Sophia. The front of the train ends up slightly over her head.
I was very relieved, and thank God that she was able to stop. And it was exhilarating to know that she was going to live.
I realized that she wasn't dead or hurt when she crawled out from under the train herself. And she had like this big Kool-Aid smile on her face. And it was just like, okay, I'm all right. And I'm just like, are you serious? Really? Okay, let's get out the pit now. Come on, let's go.
Sophia scrambles to her feet, falls, and is finally helped off the tracks by shocked bystanders.
But she seemed so calm. I don't know if I didn't really know if she knew what was really happening at some point,
Sophia did not respond to our request for an interview. Fortunately, she escapes the incident with only a few scratches.
It wouldn't have been a good outcome if the train would have went any further, because there's not a lot of space between the actual equipment and the ground. It wouldn't have been pretty.
So they said that your actions were heroic.
For their quick thinking, Charisse and one of her co-workers receive a host of awards, including one from the Massachusetts governor.
I didn't think of it as me being a hero at all. It was just me doing my job like any other T employee. It was just a reflex of, stay calm and just, stop your train. That's all I could do.
Bill is also honored by the two beloved teams he ushers for, the Red Sox and the Celtics.
They had me stand where I was ushering and had 16,000 people clapping, which is exciting as it can be.
And he's glad he could do his part to help.
I describe it as maybe once in a lifetime thing. I was just happy that I was in the right place at the right time, and I hope I never see it happen again.
May 18th, 2008, Seattle, Washington. It's a quiet Sunday, and Denise Gubernick rides a King County Metro bus heading into the city.
I was on my way to a cheese festival at Pike Place Market in downtown Seattle, and it's an annual event, and I was on my way down to go do some workshops and wander the booths and try new cheeses.
Though Denise doesn't take public transportation very often, she recognizes a woman named Jeannie sitting near the front of the bus.
She's a busker at Pike Place Market, which is a musician. She performs there. And I just saw her and, knew she was on her way to the market just like me.
Everything about the ride seems normal until the bus stops at the corner of 15th Avenue West and West Armour Street.
A young man got on the bus, very nicely dressed, had I think it was like a Mariners season ticket thing around his neck, so he was obviously on his way to a Mariners game. And he came on, paid his fare, turned around, and punched Jeannie in the side of the head, so hard that it snapped her sunglasses right off of her face.
Before the bus can even pull away, the man punches Jeannie in the face, screaming, "The sick must die." He continues to hit Jeannie until the passenger sitting next to her tries to push him off of her. It's all caught on the bus security camera.
It was really shocking. I remember hearing people screaming.
3 passengers from the back of the bus rush forward, struggling with the man and trying to keep him from attacking Jeannie. Denise is right behind them.
My instinct was to fight my way forward to go help her because I knew she was blind and she had just been hurt. I was saying, "Oh my God, oh my God." I can remember doing that all the way up. Just, "Oh my God, oh my God."
While the other passengers try to subdue the attacker, Denise moves in, throwing her body over Jeannie.
I'm a mother. That's my instinct. Protect. I just kind of pushed my way through and I sat next to her and just held her. And I just stayed there and looked up once in a while to see what was going on, but basically just held her and told her it's going to be okay. He was yelling, "God says all sick must die. I'm hearing this from God." And he was just kept yelling things about God. And at one point I looked up at him and I was crying. Jeannie wasn't, but I was crying. And I asked him, "Why? Why did you hit her?"
But when the man approaches Jeannie again, the other passengers physically restrain him. And it's not easy.
There was 3 guys holding him. One guy kind of had him around the chest. One guy had one arm. One guy had another arm. They were struggling to restrain him. They were all kind of shuffling to keep their footing because he was trying to pull away. I wasn't scared so much as I just hoped he didn't hit me. That's all. I just was kind of going like this, waiting for the punch, but it didn't come,
It takes a little while, but finally, the man stops struggling.
He finally calmed down and kind of just, his head slumped.
The passengers continue to hold him until police arrive on the scene. The man is arrested, eventually pleads guilty to attempted malicious harassment, and after serving 134 days in jail, is released with a suspended sentence during his probation. Jeannie suffers a cut to her face.
He hit her so hard that this snapped here, and so it went into her temple, so she had a cut in her temple that was bleeding.
Denise and the other passengers who helped that day are honored by the King County Sheriff's Department for their bravery. And for her part, Denise is proud she helped someone in need.
A lot of people don't care about things, but I do. I care a lot about a lot of things. And that's the difference, I guess. When somebody's being hurt, especially knowing her and knowing that she didn't deserve one bit of it, I just felt it was what I needed to do.
Coming up, 2 robbers attack the owner of an internet gaming cafe. But the tables turn when the customers in the store fight back.
They came into our place and tried to kick us around. I don't like being kicked around.
Plus,
he was outside of the car hanging on, and his caretaker was hanging on with every ounce of strength she could to make sure he didn't fall.
When caught on camera, to the rescue continues. It's almost midnight in Kaneohe, Hawaii. Customers and staff at PC Gamers Internet Cafe settle in for the night, eager to play a newly released video game, StarCraft II. Devin Woolery co-owns the store.
I was just done playing a game of StarCraft, was talking to some of the customers, walked back up to my front desk, and I noticed right kind of like last minute, 2 people were walking in with shirts with like masks on.
The 2 masked men enter the store and begin yelling at Devin, but he completely ignores them.
I figured they were joking with me because some people joke like that. So they hit the mouse out of my hand. That kind of stepped over the line.
Uneasy with the situation, Devin moves toward the store's panic button, which will signal police, and he hits it a few times.
They were yelling at me some more. Noticed I was kind of moving towards something. One of them came around, was trying to get in my face, distracting me. And then one of the guys comes around, grabs the counter, jumps and hits me in the face.
Glued to their computer screens, most of the store's die-hard gamers are too absorbed in their video games to notice there's trouble. Dylan Hayes is hanging out at the cafe that night with his friends.
I thought it was maybe somebody just goofing off or something. So we weren't really aware that it was happening when it happened. Once they hit Devin, and we all kind of figured, okay, something's happening. We kind of have to do something.
Once he hit me, my glasses flew off. I was pretty much distracted. Then the other guy was still kind of in my face.
Shaken, Devin continues to go for the panic button when suddenly one of the robbers hits him again.
When they hit me the second time, that's when somebody grabbed my cell phone, stole that. And then one of the guys goes and sees money on the counter. It was $1, grabs it and starts asking the customers for money.
They just started coming around and telling everybody to, empty their pockets, give them whatever they have, give them all the money. And some guys just handed over like loose change or like dollar bills that they had. And Jeremy, our resident StarCraft player, was so intent on his game that he just kind of handed over the money over the shoulder and kept playing.
Then one of the robbers makes his way to Dylan.
They told me to empty my pockets, and I had my DS in my pocket and had my phone, and I just kind of looked at the guy and I went, I didn't say anything to him.
Dylan has a brand new Nintendo DS portable gaming device in his pocket, and it's not something he's willing to part with.
Just bought it like 2 weeks ago and cost about $130, and I wasn't letting it go.
But refusing to hand over his valuables only makes the masked man angrier.
He put up his hands like he was gonna hit me and just kept saying, you think I'm playing? You think I'm playing? And I didn't say anything. I just stood there and stared him right back in the face. And then I saw him wind up, and all that ran through my head was, oh, this is gonna hurt. And then he hit me.
And that's when Dylan's anger overcomes his fear. It's time for Revenge of the Nerds.
When I was growing up, gamers were considered, not cool. I got teased a lot. They came into our place and tried to, kick us around, and I don't like being kicked around.
With no sign of a weapon present, Dylan rushes his attacker and begins pushing him toward the front door.
I just kind of bum rushed him. I think he was expecting the first hit to knock me down. I think it surprised him that a bunch of nerds didn't go down with one punch.
As Dylan struggles with one assailant, the other one jumps into the fight.
He and his friend were hitting me in the head as I was pushing him out the door. I kind of grabbed him around the throat, kept my head to his chest, like my dad taught me, and just kind of kept moving forward.
Seeing Dylan in trouble, Devin tries to help.
I go back around, jump back into the fight. I get slammed against the counter, blackout. I was able to pull one of the guys down, still getting punched several times, and then pin him to the ground.
Other customers help subdue one suspect and keep him inside the store. Meanwhile, Dylan, the underdog here, is still wrestling with the other robber when suddenly, triumphantly, he's able to pull the mask off the thief's face.
That's when he turned and bolted. He pulled his shirt over his head. He came back and hit me one more time, and that kind of dazed me.
Customers are still holding one robbery suspect in the store, but not for long. The other suspect and two of his friends run back into the store and begin pulling him out through the door.
He had to call his friends to come, and they had to drag the other guy out of the store.
All four of the suspects flee the scene, but with the help of Devin's security tapes and witness descriptions, police apprehend 3 of the suspects that same night. The 4th suspect is arrested about a week later. With minimal damage to themselves and the store, Devin, Dylan, and the other gamers consider themselves lucky, and they're proud they stood up for themselves.
If Dylan didn't step up, either they would have gotten what they needed and ran, or they would have continued to be a nuisance and damage property.
For his bravery, Dylan receives a free month of gaming at the store and eventually a job.
Now I don't even have to pay for hours. so it's kind of fun. They pay me to come here now.
And in the future, he hopes people will think twice before picking on gamer geeks.
Don't underestimate us. No, we're crazy. We beat bad guys day in, day out. We're always the hero.
Coming up, terror at an Iowa State fair.
He fell about 12 feet to 15 feet. It looked like he was about to fall again.
When caught on camera, to the rescue. A father gets the scare of his life when he's accidentally separated from his 3-year-old son on a Portland, Oregon train platform. It's all caught on the station's security camera. November 16, 2009. Aaron Bailey and his son Aiden are on their way to Aiden's school. When the train stops at the Main Street platform, the doors open and little Aiden, clutching his father's hand, steps out onto the platform. And that's when the terrifying ordeal begins.
I had him in my hand such as this, and he exited first, and as he was exiting, he pushed the handicap ramp.
Aiden pulls the handicap button on his way out of the door, which causes it to close right on his father's hand. Completely separated from his son, it's now a race against time for Aaron to get off of the train.
I frantically tried to push the open door button, and they did not open. Being a father, I panicked, not knowing what to do. I pushed the emergency intercom button, and there was no answer.
A young woman who witnesses the incident even pushes on the outside of the door in hopes it will open. But it's no use. In a matter of seconds, the train begins to pull away from the station, tearing apart the father from his 3-year-old son. While Aaron helplessly rides to the next train station, the kind bystander pulls Aiden to the side and waits with him. Aaron gets off at the next station and hops the return train back to Main Street. It takes a long 7 minutes, but finally, a relieved Aaron is reunited with his son.
I was overwhelmed with emotion at that point in time once I saw he was safe.
With his son safe and secure, Aaron turns and hugs the Good Samaritan who helped them.
We embraced and cried for a minute with her, and then everything was okay.
She gets a warm hug from little Aiden, too. And little Aiden tells his dad,
"Daddy, I will never push another button again."
An investigation into why the doors did not reopen leads to the firing of a train operator. Aaron Bailey filed a lawsuit against Portland's transit agency, TriMet, claiming negligence and intentional infliction of emotional distress. But the court ruled in favor of TriMet. A crowd holds its breath as a developmentally disabled man slips from the top of a 50-foot Ferris wheel at an annual Iowa State Fair. It's August 2nd, 2005, and the day begins with excitement in the air.
Biggest fair in eastern Iowa. A lot of people expected to be there over the week.
A lot of people already turning up for the fair. It's just in its first few hours.
Eric Maitland, a weatherman at KWQC-TV, the local NBC television station, is preparing to do a live shot for the newscast.
The kickoff day was Special Needs Day, and it was where they invited people from around the region with special needs to come enjoy the fair with their caretakers. For us as a TV station, we like to get there and do all of our newscasts from that fair the first day it opened.
If you're coming to the fair or anywhere in the Great Quad Cities, we'll have a look at your Tuesday forecast in just a moment.
When the newscast takes a commercial break, Maitland stands by, going over his notes and enjoying the crowd.
I was looking around, gathering the sights and sounds of the fair, and one of those sounds became a scream. And then it became a lot of screams. Literally and figuratively, one scream rose above the rest. I saw this sea of people pointing up, and all kinds of concern on their face. And when I followed their pointing, I noticed at the top of the Ferris wheel what was going on. And there was a man who looked like he was about to fall out of the Ferris wheel, out of the seat.
The man is 31-year-old Caleb Hill, who has special needs. He's literally dangling from atop the Ferris wheel.
Apparently, the ride had been going, and it stopped because they were at the point where they were letting people off so they could let more people on.
At only 5 feet tall, Hill is able to work his way beneath the safety bar and out of the car.
We don't know why he left the car. Some people said Caleb was scared. His relatives said that he just didn't like sitting still. He was outside of the car hanging on, and his caretaker was hanging on with every ounce of strength she could to make sure he didn't fall.
But the caretaker is losing her grip.
She really had a battle because it was a hot day. I'm sure he was probably sweaty. They were in the sun, and he had all kinds of sunscreen on. So she was doing whatever she could to hold on to his arm and keep him from falling off of that car.
As each second ticks by, Caleb slips lower and lower. Suddenly, she can hold him no more. The crowd gasps as the caretaker loses her grip and Caleb plunges down the middle of the Ferris wheel.
He fell about 12 feet to 15 feet, hitting a bar on the way, and then falling off of that bar to the middle of the Ferris wheel.
The bars in the middle of the Ferris wheel actually break Caleb's fall. And now, thankfully, help is on the way.
Because his caretaker held on so long and screamed so loud that I think just about everybody in the park knew something was wrong. There were a sea of carnival workers positioned underneath that Ferris wheel. Some of them were on the ground, some of them were on the platform, and one or two guys were actually climbing up the frame. It looked like he was about to fall again, but the first guy up the Ferris wheel was in the right spot to grab hold of him. And he wasn't going to fall anymore.
At that point, the carnival workers resemble firefighters as they each hand off Hill to one another.
The first man who was holding him at the axle of the Ferris wheel was holding on to him, but then he lowered him to the next pair of waiting hands, who lowered him to the next pair of waiting hands, and eventually they got him off of the Ferris wheel and down to the paramedics and some fire department people who are already there waiting for him.
As Maitland wraps up his newscast from the fair, he gives the audience an update.
We're now taking him back off of the ride. I would imagine he's probably going to be very bumped and bruised.
He was cut, he was bruised, but he didn't have any bones broken. He was lucid, he was conscious, he was taking in the sights and sounds of the fair. It's almost as if he was trying to get off of that stretcher and go back to the rides. He had a little bit of a grin on his face.
As for Maitland, it remains one of those days he's likely to remember for a very long time.
We've got a happy ending to what could have been a horrifying situation.
For me that day, it was just a huge adrenaline rush. I mean, in that commercial break, I literally thought I was going to see somebody lose his life. And then when the story turned and he was rescued, it was just an extreme deep breath moment. And glad to see that it went the way it did.
Strangers, friends, and neighbors to the rescue. Without their quick thinking and acts of bravery, many of these stories could have had far more tragic endings. I'm Contessa Brewer. That's all for this edition of Caught on Camera.